right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. It's the pre show for episode 735. It is October 27th, 2022. We are live on Twitch. Going to answer some questions. I want to remind everybody if you're watching this live or on YouTube, we'll be taking questions for future segments for the community segment. You can leave a comment on this video on YouTube. You can leave us a comment in Discord or on Patreon. I'm going to be pulling from all these different places. 4playernetwork.com. Wherever you leave a comment, I will seek it out. I will find it, and we'll feature it in a pre-show. So, with that said, without further ado, hit us with the first question. Chris Davis, Brad, are you ready? Are you
I'm
ready
ready
for this first question?
Let's
Big
do
Wazoo.
it.
Big Wazoo
Wazoo.
asks, this is a Halloween question. With Halloween right around the corner, what is a level or section from a spooky game that you really enjoy? There's a lot to choose from here. I mean, is it super lame to like go straight for the farmhouse basement level and Condemned? I like my brain like always jumps straight to that because it's super terrifying.
Oh, well,
Although I haven't.
One thing your brain's doing is for some reason downplaying your choice.
I mean, I'm only downplaying because I haven't played it in like 10 years.
It's a pretty cool level moment, whatever.
Yeah.
One that I think of often, and I think it's just because the first time I play, you can go to something like like a Fatal Frame or something that's actually scary or something. But one of the ones I always think of, and it doesn't affect me as much now as it did back then, but the bunker area from the original Uncharted.
Oh yeah, no, that shit's
Dude, the first time I played that game, that shit scared the fuck out of me.
Dude, it's still super tense.
Dude, it is, and it's there. If you haven't seen it, and I guess kind of spoilers for a game that came out in 2008, one of the biggest games on the PS3 at the time. Their enemies are, the only way I can describe them is I Am Legend-esque enemies in the dark.
All lanky, pasty looking humanoid figures that chase you on like a gorilla, kind of like on all fours, like through the aren't you in like a submarine, or you're like in a
no, you're not in a submarine. You're in like that kind of bunker, it's like a dock on the side of like a mountain underground.
Yeah. Either way, it's like a maze, it's dark, and you're being chased by pasty, lanky figures, and it's creepy.
One level that's inadvertently scary the first time you play it, I immediately think of the tunnels from underneath the cities in Assassin's Creed 3. You go into that, and it is just pitch black. There's no music, no nothing. It's just you wandering around in the dark down there.
Okay, so wait, so you're talking about Assassin's Creed 3, like the one that takes place in like America?
Yes.
There's a scary part in that game?
Well, I mean, I
think he's saying it was suspenseful.
Suspenseful
okay.
The first time you experience it.
I'm not trying to downplay that. I mean, I'm sure it's accurate. It's just I haven't played it in so long, and it's one of these games that I've been kind of like very subtly eyeballing. Like I kind of want to replay Assassin's Creed 3. I know, Nolan. I know. Don't shake your head at me. I know, but part of me, the weird part of me, really wants to, and I'm like, oh, there's a scary part.
That seems like yeah. You do that with a lot of games, Nick. I think this one's got to be way down on that list of things you should actually play.
I bought the HD,
and that
PS4
might not have been necessary, honestly. Don't replay.
A lot of what I do is not necessary.
That's true.
Also, Queen Vanessa's Manor in A Hat in Time is a legit horror act in the game that just kind of comes out of the fucking nowhere.
Hey, what are you doing?
Wow, I like how Brad. I don't think Brad realized he's not muted.
Hot mic.
No, that's fine.
Hot mic.
Hot mic. All right, I think he's fine.
The kind of
somebody in
back
chat
on this
says Ravenholm from Half-Life 2.
Yeah, sure.
Classic.
No, yeah. Oh no, Ravenholm definitely was pretty. Yeah,
that's from that's Man of the Lamb in chat says Ravenholm.
But kind of trying to get back on topic of actual spoopy games that are intended to be spoopy, not just sections in them. The original Left 4 Dead, definitely, especially the first time you encounter like a witch.
Yeah.
Like some of that stuff was definitely pretty spoopy.
Left 4 Dead 2 the hard rain campaign when you're coming back through the storm. That is a legit horror moment.
Yep.
I also want to give a shout out to Silent Hill 2. I mean, obviously it's a goat. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But specifically, the portion where you have to go through the underground prison that goes underneath the lake in the middle of town. There's not a lot happening in that sequence. It's just very dark. It's very eerie. It's obviously you're walking through like prison, like halls of prison cells, and I forgot, you get to one point and you can just hear something like like coming from one of the cells, and I remember just stopping and being like, fuck this, fuck that, I'm not taking another step in this place. And I don't think anything ever really happens in that prison. Nothing ever attacks you, if I recall. But I remember being so scared out of my mind playing that moment.
Technology in chat says the school in Fear 2. I will go one step beyond that and say the demo for Fear 2. The demo for Fear 2 itself is better than the base game.
Really? I don't remember much about the demo of Fear 2, but
it's so much better.
Shit. It's not that different. Hey, we're just naming scary parts of scary games or
scary parts that we like, that tickle our balls. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
That was the gist of it.
Someone in chat said Ravenholm.
Ravenholm's
pretty great.
I mentioned that, Brad. Thank you for coming back.
Someone in chat did, not you, Nick.
I mentioned the person in chat who said Ravenholm. It was Man of the Land.
The hotel in Bloodlines, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines was pretty great. Haunted hotel.
It's one of those things that makes me wish I did do the haunted hotel, and I didn't finish Vampire the Masquerade, but I did do the hotel. You're right. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
You know, I don't know.
Also, each time you came back to the base manor in Eternal Darkness, how the game would start to fuck with you more and more and more.
Yeah.
That's
the game. Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like we're just talking about scary moments in scary games, and we've played a billion of those, and that's not that exciting. But I like
quite literally the question.
Tangent. Brad. I like Halloween levels in games. You know, like some of the Mario games do it. Mario and Rabbids 1 had a Halloween world, and one thing I usually do every Halloween since the game came out is I played through the Halloween world in Puppeteer, which I really liked.
Nice.
Which was cool, but
I don't think
scary stuff. Halloween. I feel like we could talk forever, but I mean, I feel like scary games and scary moments get talked to death. But I understand it is October.
It's spooky season.
I know, but it's a conversation we've had for 15 years.
Well, there's one more question that we're gonna have tonight that is spooky related, but also tune in tonight on the podcast, the actual podcast. I'll be rapid fire talking about like a bunch of Halloween stuff that I played over the weekend, or spooky stuff. So, anyways, what's question number 2, Chris Davis?
It's from Tack. You want to read it, or you want to read it?
I got it. Tack says, what is some of your favorite background dialogue in games? Banter between party members, comments over the radio, or even just quips from NPCs. Anything goes as long as it isn't triggered by direct player interaction.
That was sort of a thing back in the day. Like,
I don't feel like that gets called out enough these days.
You'd see it in like, immersive sims or like shooters and stuff. Like, No One Lives Forever. You'll walk up and on a goofy conversation, and it's just a bit. Like the whole thing is just a bit for you to hear and laugh. Like No One Lives Forever and did stuff like that. And a lot of like British games with a lot of British comedy would always have these sorts of conversations.
Does Rockstar games? Rockstar games have those kinds of conversations too, where it's like it's purely just there for your benefit, whether you hear it or not. It doesn't really fucking matter. But somebody, Pokop in chat, of course, mentions a perfect hand 29.
To this day, I have tried my hardest to hear that, and I never catch it. I don't know what. Maybe there's something wrong with my brain, but I don't ever hear that.
Fix your ears, Chris Davis. It happens. But hey, man, like,
how did Gamer Beck remember Burt Rivera? Don't forget the poop job.
Because it's
Wait, what is that? What is that from again?
That's the same. It's the same.
Yeah, it's the same one.
It's the same
Pillars
thing.
of
It's
Eternity,
it's
right?
background noise. I
Yeah.
guess there's whatever random background dialogue that you really got to hone in on. But
In Red Dead?
no, not Red Dead.
Oh, okay.
No, Pillars of Eternity.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, Kurt Rivera in Red Dead.
Like when you go into a tavern, you just start hearing chatter. But if you really like listen, it actually is
it's like
things.
it's
but
like when they're filming movies and they have background extras, they just tell them to like repeat certain like nonsense lines over and over again because it does a good job of like mimicking like natural mouth
Yeah, but-
movements and conversation, but like it's not they're saying nonsense. It's like that.
but then you start hearing actual words come out of the nonsense, like Benny Lava. But yeah, that's a good one, Burt Rivera.
But like the other side of this question is like actual like actual dialogue, like not nonsense, just actual dialogue in a game, like intentional stuff. Like obviously all the radio commercials that or just NPC dialogue in any Grand Theft Auto game is priceless.
Any of the talk radio on in a GTA game, yeah.
And of course, in games that have like RPG parties that have banter and dialogue and whatnot, of course, are always not always great, but like BioWare tends to do it very very well when they're firing on all cylinders, which hasn't really been happening lately. But I don't know.
And 7 days coming up. Who knows?
I don't think you're gonna get a good taste of that. They're making a new Mass Effect and a new Dragon Age, but until I'm playing those games and happy with them, I'm gonna pretty much be anticipating them to be disappointing. I don't know at this point. What other games have good dialogue or background dialogue? I don't know.
I mean, for
think
me,
we
any
could-
of the Ace
It's
Combat
pretty rare.
games have great background combat dialogue going on.
Which one?
Is it just
Say again?
Ace Combat? Is it just because it's authentic? Like it's like actual
It's
like
not
radio
really
chatter?
authentic, but like, there's a certain element in those games of like player activated based on how well you're progressing in a mission, but also like your wingmen have relationships and talk to one another, and there's combat banter and things like that, and it all just kind of flows well into the pace of a mission.
Cool. All right, let's go to the third question here. We got 4 questions total, and we do need to get started. All right, the Drunken Merchant says Resident Evil 4 remake looks promising considering they turned the overpowered knife into a resource with durability to further balance how you manage your items and deal with enemy encounters. What is the best quality of life / new addition added to a sequel or remake of a video game that you could think of? Some other
I was
examples
adding durability to the knife, quality of life.
I don't think. Well, he's just saying additions, like new additions. Like that
It's
is
a new dimension.
Addition. It's a new dimension to it. But like you can also take this question to mean like quality of life stuff that's improved in a remake. But I do think the knife thing in Resident Evil 4 is a really subtle and interesting way of like kind of introducing a little bit of extra chaos into that could literally quite literally change up the game pretty dramatically. I think. Moment to moment, because you may not always have that knife to kind of fall back on if you end up using it too much, which is pretty cool.
Well, I mean, sticking with Resident Evil, I would point to the remake of the original Resident Evil with the defensive weapons that you get, the stun gun or the knife or even a
Yes.
grenade.
Dude, if you want to talk, about new additions to a remake that make it a better fucking video game.
Don't say
Crimson
mine.
Heads. Crimson Heads,
Okay.
man.
Oh yeah,
Crimson
All right.
Heads are the coolest addition to a remake because it changes the entire flow of the game. You have
Yeah,
to, like,
that's not that's not quality of life. That's just it
No,
just makes it a cooler game.
you're locking on to the words and thinking that there's no other way to
I
interpret the
thought
question. New additions or quality of life, but like if you talk about new additions, that's one of the best ones.
I would say, I mean, obviously going towards quality of life and new additions. Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence, adding
Here we
the
go.
third-person camera, so you
Mhm.
were no longer locked at camera angles and stuff like that.
There
I
we
think
go,
that's a
there we go.
huge one.
I think a
that
pretty
completely
famous
changes
one
that game.
is sometimes I feel like I'm trying to get out my answer before chat types. The Wind Waker HD that added the
yes.
fast cell and the wind direction that you can not have to stop your boat and do the baton, that
Yeah,
like
for sure.
dramatically changes the
In the-
pace of that game for the better.
In the same vein, not necessarily a remake, I guess. Well, I guess kind of. Yeah, I guess it's a remake in a way. But the DS version of Ocarina of Time, where you could put the boots on by tapping the
Oh
iron
yeah,
boots.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
I think it's one of
There
those
you go,
things
yeah.
that it's it's oversight in a lot of situations, and that really helps. That is the benefit of more modern games being online and being accessible is you don't have to have a completely from the ground up redevelopment of a game in order to improve your life. Like you said, like in theory, if that game had come out, if Ocarina of Time had come out in the past year and that was an issue, I'm sure within weeks there would either be a fan
it'd be
mod
fixed.
or a patch to the game that allow you to quickly take on and off your boots or something like that.
Absolutely.
Obviously, if it's on a console, it's a little more difficult.
That was such a
But
game
yeah,
changer. It made the water temple like one of the like it went
For
from like
sure.
one of the most painstaking, just like, oh god, I got to do the water temple, to okay, I'm really digging the water temple now because I don't have to go into my menu every 5 seconds to do it.
Pack and Chad has another good point of I think a lot of JRPGs are coming out with that built in now, like maybe after you beat the game. But the ability to disable random encounters, speed up the character players,
Yes.
running
Right.
around the world and stuff like that. Like some of that
Good
stuff
shit.
is so helpful, especially if it's not your first time playing the game and you're trying to replay a 100-hour game. It's a lot nicer if
Yeah.
you can kind of breeze past some sections.
Yeah, I think also just kind of generally speaking, you see this a lot, especially with the Resident Evil remakes, the more recent ones too. Just like this change in camera. Like you mentioned Metal Gear, it's happened in a bunch of other remakes as well. But like playing Resident Evil 2 with the over the shoulder camera just makes that a whole different game and makes it a better game and feels better, I think, to play. I mean, obviously that wasn't even an option when Resident Evil 2 originally released, so it's not like a knock against the original game. But man, it changes everything. Okay, one more question, and then we got to start the actual podcast. Let's see. From Tack. Oh wait, that's from last week.
That's the
Uh
one
oh.
you- Oh
No,
this-
that's not the one. Don't worry, I'll just read this one
okay.
because I have
Well-
it pulled up still.
Oh, I could ask a question or something
Wait,
if
you
we
know what?
really need another question.
I have a question here.
Oh, okay.
And this is kind of in the. I said there. This is from Dr. Michael Morbius. It's a Gamerbat question. He says, which horror games have the best, most rewarding exploration, in your opinion?
That's a good
There
question.
we go. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like almost counter like intuitive to like have wanderlust in a horror game, right? Because it's like I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to open the next door, much less explore.
Evil Within. I think
Mm.
both 1 and 2, because
Two
of how the
especially, yeah.
upgrade system works,
Especially
it
two,
really
maybe?
rewards you to explore and to find the upgrade materials.
Yeah. I definitely concur. I also totally see where Brad's coming from because, yeah, exploration can be daunting in any horror game. Like, Fatal Frame, it took me forever just to get the balls to like move from one room to the next.
Technology
I
in
would say
chat is
also-
a really good one.
That's a good one. Yeah. So I don't know if this necessarily counts as a horror game, but I could see how you might lump it in that in that genre. But Technology mentions Stalker because it's
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I guess Shadow of Chernobyl specifically. I played that one for the Revival Club. I love that game, and a lot of what I love about it is because it's so open and that mood and that atmosphere and that like that oppressive atmosphere is always with you. And resources are
just
so
watching that stream of you
vital.
playing what was it? It wasn't Shadow of Chernobyl, it was Call of Pripyat, and it was your first
yeah.
encounter with a bloodsucker.
Oh yeah,
You were having a bad
Those things-
time.
those are
I feel like-
the invisible things, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Stalker works because you have like a real desire to get stronger, and like you find things that can like make you really powerful or like feel really powerful, and so you have a strong desire to want to find those things. But yeah, it is pretty oppressive.
Oh fuck! I had an answer, or I had.
While
like,
you
somebody,
think about it,
Uh-huh.
I helped. Now you go, and then I'll.
No, I was just gonna mention what Gamerbeck said. He says I think Subnautica might count, and I think he might be right.
That doesn't count.
I mean, let's just say if you have thalassophobia, maybe Subnautica counts.
No one would call Subnautica a horror game. The whole point of that game is to explore. So it's. I feel like
It is
doesn't-
all about exploration. You
the
can
deeper
get a
you go,
horror.
the
You
scarier that
can
game
feel
gets.
maybe a little bit of horror element, but the whole point of that is exploration. No, I was kind of like quickly going to revisit the first question. Horror kind of element or whatever. I mean, it's not a horror game, but the Pit in Fallout 3. That was another
Oh.
one that like I remember freaking me out when I first played it. That it was pretty intense. I mean, you have VATS to help you, but it also is not extremely helpful when you turn on VATS and you zoom in on a creature's face that looks all like fierce as it's pouncing on you. But yeah.
Good one. I think.
All right. Anyway.
What else? I don't know. I think a lot more of like the modern kind of AAA horror games that we're seeing, like Resident Evil and the Resident Evil remakes.
Village was pretty good at that.
Yeah, Village had great exploration. In fact, I would say Village and Resident Evil 7 both had 7 maybe especially because there's really only a couple enemies in the it's more like the original Resident Evil, but like with even fewer enemies, I think, than the original. So you're spending a lot of time exploration, but knowing that one of those, one of those people might suddenly appear and hunt you down, or whatever. It was tense. It was nerve wracking, but like a lot of that game is just like kind of quiet exploration and trying to figure out where you're going while trying to avoid those characters, which I thought was really great. Yeah. I think that unless you have any last minute answers, I think we're good.
Yeah.
So guys, thank you so much for the questions. Again, if you want to leave a comment, if you have a question for next week, leave it in the comments for this video on YouTube. If you're a Patreon supporter, I have a thread up there on Patreon. You can leave a question there. You can also leave us a comment in Discord in the submit a question thread. I'll be pulling from all these different places. So the sooner you get those questions in, the better. That way we're not trying to like squeeze people in at the last possible second. But we record these usually at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time before we record the podcast, which we're going to do now. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this video up. So bye.